We're back with a Fox News alert. 8 people are stabbed in a Minnesota mall last night by a suspect shouting Allah during his rampage. Here with more about the attacker and a sinister plot, national security analyst with the Clarion Project, Mauro. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
This morning, really, it's been an unsettling 24 hours. I mean, you look at what happened in Minnesota. 8 people stabbed. No question, this was a terrorist attack.
Oh, right, and he's telling you because when he's saying Allah, he could just mumble that to himself. But no, he's shouting it. That's a way of saying, this is my motivation and this is why I'm doing this type of thing. So we don't need to speculate about this, that he had jihadist motivations, because he told us that. But then the problem that arises is, how do you cover it when you're in the media? Because the way these guys radicalize others is through the perception of success. And so the way I handle it is we'll talk about an attack like this, but also mention the broader context that ISIS is losing territory, for example, in Iraq and Syria. That is also part of the story.
So this man apparently asked his victims before he stabbed them, "Are you a Muslim?" Kind of hard at that point to deny the religious quality to this conflict, right? This is not a secular conflict.
They'll find a way. Just watch. In the coming days, what's going to happen is someone will find something that went wrong in his background, some sign of mental illness, some way someone harmed him or hurt his feelings, and they'll say, well, that's really the root cause, because for whatever reason, there's this big movement to deny the obvious fact that the problem is the ideology.
Well, when you say for whatever reason, what are the reasons? Because it is striking, the refusal of people to connect obvious dots. What is that about?
A lot of it can be partisanship. A lot of it can be just the fact that it's so hard for us to swallow that idea that someone can adopt this ideology. And as Americans, we cannot relate to that. What do we relate to? The idea that harm, poverty, and things like that cause crime and people to go insane.
Right, and that's the reality we live in, is these lone wolf attacks that we're facing. They may not even be talking to ISIS, but they claim to be part of them. That's the challenge. Some people say, well, it may not be terrorism, but it all is. Right? I mean, if they're doing an attack like that, that's terrorism.
Yeah, one of the things we have to be looking at also is that the lone wolves usually don't really exist. When you look at the studies, they're almost always talking to someone, even if it's just online and meeting with them. Someone's radicalizing them and teaching them their complex ideology. In many cases, they also have someone that they meet with face-to-face that's egging them on. So if there's a social process here, people interacting, we have to ask who radicalized the individual, who was he talking to when he had doubts, who did he go to address them?
So what's so striking about the cluster of terror events in Minnesota is a lot of them have implicated people who were born here. Their parents came here as refugees, so they're not ISIS plants. They didn't escape vetting.
Exactly.
What do you do about that?
Well, usually when they become violent radicals, there's a radicalization process that precedes that. You have to have this broad worldview that is anti-American, believes in creating an Islamic state, and then the added factor is, will you pursue that through violence? So there does have to be ideological vetting on that basis, but there is a problem here where there can be someone that doesn't embrace that ideology, isn't even thinking about ideology at all. They come to the United States, they move from one location to the next, and then they have an identity crisis when they're a teenager and they get wrapped up with the wrong person.
Doesn't it suggest something is wrong with the community from which they're coming? I mean,
oh, sure.
I mean, what is that community? I mean, I don't know. I'm asking you. You're the expert here.
Right.
But
well, for example, the Somali community, there's been a lot of problems with having radical clerics there. You hear about clashes between some Somali activists that say, look, we've got to clean up what's going on here, and then they get condemned even as Islamophobes, even if they're Muslims themselves. There's been programs put forth for de-radicalization, and then you hear about local community leaders saying, no, you're focusing on ideology, that's offensive, what we need are after-school programs.
Do those work?
No, there is no evidence indicating that they work at all.
Rhetorical question.
I know,
Thank you for confirming
It's a frightening reality that we face. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan.